I sat alone on a crate at the train station, heartbroken and alone, unaware of the cowboy ready to change everything. The sun dipped low, painting the sky a fierce orange, matching the turmoil inside me. A gust of wind twisted around my trembling fingers as I clutched my suitcase, every scratch on its surface telling tales of a life once lived. Silence hung heavy in the air, only broken by the distant whistle of a train, a ghostly echo of possibility. This station, this place that smelled of rust and forgotten dreams, felt like a prison. What had once been a vibrant hub now stood still, with only shadows for company. An old man with a weathered face sat on a nearby bench, eyes glazed over like they were trapped in an eternal daydream. A couple laughed, but their joy grated against my heart, the sound sharp like glass. They kissed, oblivious to me, lost in their own universe. I closed my eyes tight, wishing to block out the world. Memories pierced through my vision like sharp daggers, the sound of my mother's laughter, the scent of warm cookies, my younger brother's mischievous grin. They were all gone now, taken by shadows. The weight of their absence choked me. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself in a world that felt like it was spinning out of control. Suddenly, the sound of boots echoed against the cracked pavement. It was heavy, purposeful. I opened my eyes just in time to see him, the cowboy. He stood tall, a figure carved from the past, with a wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow over his face. The sun glinted off his silver spurs, making them shine like stars in the twilight. He was an enigma, a stranger draped in leather, yet there was an air of familiarity around him that made my heart race. His presence felt electric, humming with intensity. I could see the determination in his stance, arms crossed over his chest, eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk. And then he locked eyes with me. I froze, a shiver trickling down my spine. Something burned in his gaze. Desire? Help? Or maybe it was something darker, something that pulled at the edges of my fear. Around us, the world went on, hazy and out of focus. But in that moment, it was just the two of us, my broken heart and his piercing stare. The world beyond my crate blurred. I could hear my own heartbeat, pounding, a frantic drum, drowning out the noise of others. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, the abyss below whispering promises of despair. Hey, you gonna leave here or just sit and stare? His voice cut through the tension like a knife. It was deep and gravelly, yet strangely soothing. My lips parted, ready to respond, but no words came. I didn't know what to say. Did I even want to leave? What fate awaited me beyond this station? Would his presence be a saving grace or simply another thread in this tangled web of sorrow? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The cowboy stepped closer, his boots thudding softly on the ground, and my heart raced with each measured stride he took toward me. I was frozen, trapped in an internal struggle between wanting to shrink away and needing to reach out for anything that felt like hope. Don't you think it's time to move? He asked, a hint of gentleness underlying the urgency in his voice. A part of me wanted to reject him, to push away anyone trying to peel back the layers of my grief. Another part longed for his strength, for a beacon amidst this desolation. That I opened my mouth, a tremor in my voice betraying the effort it took to respond. Where would I go? The words slipped out before I could think too much, exposing how lost I really was. The air between us charged, heavy with unspoken stories. His eyes softened slightly, and he shifted his weight, leaning against a nearby post. You go where you want to, or where you need to. There's a whole world outside this station. He gestured vaguely as if to embrace the entire universe beyond the tracks. That I looked away, unable to meet his gaze. My mind spun with thoughts of home, of the ashes of my childhood mingling with the pain that permeated my moments. Realizing I had been staring at the pavement, I met his eyes again, searching for some spark of understanding, some thread of connection. What if I'm not ready? For a heartbeat, everything paused. Then he stepped forward, his posture softening as if he understood the depths of my sorrow. Being ready is overrated. It's about taking that first step, regardless of the darkness clinging to you. In that moment, I was vulnerable, laid bare in the twilight. The weight of loss pressed against my chest, choking off words that begged to be spoken. What did he know about loss? What right did he have to speak like this? Yet something stirred inside me, a flicker of awareness that perhaps he held a fragment of truth. As I rummaged through my thoughts, searching for a response, a loud train whistle pierced the air, shaking the moment with its mechanical cry. The sound triggered a flood of memory as me brother and I racing to catch the last train of the night, Mom laughing as we fought over the window seat. The abrupt wave of nostalgia threatened to overwhelm me, and I felt my eyes sting with unshed tears. A movement caught my eye, and I turned my head to see a young girl, her pigtails swinging as she ran toward the cowboy. She was holding a crumpled piece of paper in her small hands, breathless with excitement. Mister, can you help me? The cowboy knelt down, his expression instantly transforming into one of warmth. What's the problem, little lady? She looked at me, clearly unsure of the stranger before her, then back at him. I lost my kite. It flew away in the wind. Can you help me find it? A sudden smile broke on his face, something genuine lighting up his eyes as he straightened. You bet I can. Well, find that kite together. What color is it? Watching him interact with her, a small ember of hope flickered within me. There was kindness there, a reminder that there was still sweetness in the world, even amid sorrow. I held on to that moment, feeling the connection shift. Maybe I wasn't completely alone. As they both wandered toward a nearby field, my heart began to race again, but for a different reason. Maybe I could take that step, maybe I could lean into that warmth. But a rogue thought dashed through my mind. What if I dared to reach out? And then the darkness swept back in. I pulled my suitcase into my lap, glancing at the couple still wrapped in their laughter, their joy spilling over like sunlight. Everything within me clenched. Could I ever be that carefree again? The world felt too big and too heavy, and for a fleeting moment, I wanted to close my eyes and wait for this emptiness to simply pass, but then I heard the girl's laughter, bright and uninhibited as it danced on the wind, reaching me even from a distance. It took root within me. Could I allow myself to feel something again? The cowboy looked back at me, the girl now capturing his attention entirely. He held her laughter in his hands, cradling something precious, and I could see the way his heart began to stir. When my gaze returned to his, that familiarity surged back, pulling me closer to a decision I was terrified to make. I could let the shadows close in, or I could reach for the thread of hope offered by a stranger with the strength to guide me. Just as I stood, a sudden roar of thunder split the sky above, dark clouds gathering ominously. Tension crackled in the air, a storm brewing that felt all too familiar, a mirror to my own turbulence. The couple glanced up, their laughter dying mid-sentence, and in that heartbeat, chaos replaced calm. The thunder rolled again, louder this time, as if the universe were warning me of something lurking just beyond the horizon. I hesitated, torn between following after the cowboy or retreating back into the safety of my despair. And so, as raindrops began to plummet from the heavens, I faced a fork in the road, to step into the unknown or pull back into the shadows of my heart. The realization hung heavy in the air, suffocating, as I teetered on the brink of my decision, the storm echoing the tempest within. In the stillness, raindrops collided with the earth, the patter a sharp reminder of the chaos outside and within. Each droplet that splashed onto my skin sent a shiver down my spine, grounding me in the moment as I wrestled with my beating heart, anguished, hopeful, terrified. Each thunderclap above seemed to mock the fragility of my resolve, threatening to blow away the tiny spark of hope I had dared to ignite. The girl's laughter faded as she pointed toward a rainbow hiding in the storm's distance, the cowboy squatting beside her, a guardian of innocence amid a downpour. There I stood, an unwilling participant in my own life, locked in an internal battle, feeling the weight of grief like a boulder pressing me down while simultaneously sensing an instinctual pull toward life, toward light. Come on. I heard him call to her, his voice clear and strong, but it felt as though it was aimed at me as well. Well, find your kite. Let's take this storm head on. His courage stirred something within me, a longing for the light I had lost, for companionship uncloaked by shadows. The rain poured harder, stinging my face like little needles, the world around me growing dark as the skies opened wide. Suddenly, driven by an impulse I couldn't name, I took a step forward, then another, until I was moving, slipping off my crate and walking toward them. Each stride felt like a declaration against the tide of despair coursing through me. Wait! I shouted over the sound of the thunder, my voice shaky but resolute. They both turned to me, surprise painting their features. I forced a smile, feeling vulnerable yet invigorated. The cowboy straightened, his expression shifting from confusion to something warmer. You're joining us? He asked, his tone beckoning rather than questioning. That I hesitated, drenched in uncertainty yet fueled by the flickering light of something resembling hope. I want to help. As I fought back my worries and stepped closer, the young girl's eyes sparkled with delight. You can help. She beamed, her small fist clenching the crumpled paper still in her palm. My kite went up high, up in the air. Well, searched together. For a moment, the storm felt less ominous, morphing into a companion instead of an enemy. I drew in a breath, my chest expanding as if taking in the whirlwind of life swirling around us. Maybe the clouds would pass, maybe there could be something beyond this moment. The cowboy placed a calming hand on my shoulder, a gesture that came with unexpected warmth. Ready? He asked, and despite the turbulent anticipation, I nodded. Let's find that kite. That we moved through the rain, our feet splashing in puddles, the earth alive beneath us. It was chaos, and yet it felt illuminating, freeing. With every step, I caught glimpses of joy peeking through my grief, like the timid sun trying to break free from the oppressive clouds. But as we twisted through the tall grass of the field, the storm rumbled again, and it carried with it a sense of impending revelation. The girl darted ahead, her giggles ringing bright even as the wind howled around us. It took only a moment for me to notice the tension returning to the cowboy's face, an unease that bubbled just beneath his warm exterior. My heart twisted with uncertainty. Is something wrong? I asked as we fell into step beside one another. I caught his gaze, the fabric of vulnerability weaved tight around him. He looked away, a flicker of something dark flitting in his eyes, an unresolved conflict. It's nothing, he replied, but the way his jaw clenched told a different story. I wanted to press further, to unravel the truth residing just below the surface, but the girl squealed in delight, beckoning us closer. Like a moth to a flame, I was helpless against the pull of her joy. That we found it. She cried, shoving her hands into the air triumphantly. A vivid swirl of colors danced in the trembling winds. A kite caught high in the branches of a gnarled, old tree. But the beauty of that moment quickly fractured as the wind picked up, a violent gust tearing through the field, slapping rain against my face and creating a cacophony of sound around us. The clouds dimmed, heavy and gray, as jagged flashes of lightning illuminated the path ahead, and I felt fear creeping back in. Stay here. The cowboy shouted, lunging toward the tree while I hesitated, torn between the girl's laughter and the tempest growing around us. But just as he reached the base of the tree, the bark exploded with a cracking sound, sending a shower of splinters into the air. Run! I screamed, my heart racing. The world around us seemed to buckle, one moment promising joy, the next threatening devastation. But even as I gathered the girl in my arms, pulling her away from the tree, I sensed the impact of a deeper truth lurking behind the wild chaos of the storm. Something was off with the cowboy, his presence suddenly overshadowed by a storm of secrets, and before I could decipher it, the wind howled powerful, unyielding, leaving me with a chilling question that echoed louder than the thunder. What was he running from? The wind howled violently around us as I shielded the girl, clutching her tightly, feeling her small body tremble against mine. The cowboy, just moments ago a steady force, was now a silhouette against the flashing lightning, his own resolve wavering as he took in the scene before him. Stay back. he yelled, his voice strained yet commanding. The storm's ferocity was intensifying, drowning out the steady rhythm of the rain with ominous roars. But the girl, emboldened by the energy around us, squirmed to break free from my grasp. No. I want to help. She insisted, her face scrunched in determination. Before I could respond, the cowboy launched himself into action, climbing the tree with an agility that belied the gravity of the situation. His movements were a stark contrast to the chaos that threatened to swallow us whole. I glanced down at the girl, whose unwavering spirit continued to sparkle even in the face of danger. For a moment, her courage felt like a Biakona reminder of the hope nestled deep within me. "Let's stay here," I whispered, my voice trembling as I tried to keep a brave face. "We can help from the ground," the girl nodded, her brows furrowed in concentration as she inched away from me, her eyes glued to the cowboy. But my heart raced differently now, caught in the undertow of fear as I watched him scale higher, determined to retrieve that colorful kite. A part of me rooted for him, while another part pulled away, grappling with the unsettling feeling that this storm held a deeper weight. The lightning flashed again, illuminating the tension in the air. It was as if the storm wasn't just formed of clouds and rain but of secrets, the kind that had shaped the very essences of the people we clung to. Uncertainty clawed at me, and I wondered about the truth the cowboy seemed to evade. "I can't just sit here," I muttered to myself, barely aware of the girl's gaze glued to the tree. The cowboy had reached the kite, and for a heartbeat, everything felt suspended in the air, a moment untainted by fear, radiant with triumph. But then the heavens cracked open, and in that instant, a blinding flash surged down, striking nearby with an earth-shaking boom that sent a shockwave through the ground. The horseman lost his footing, slipping just enough to grip the branch tightly, jaws clenched in sheer resolve. "Hold on. Incoming!" I called out instinctively, panic crawling over my skin. The girl's eyes widened, a blend of fear and awe on her youthful face. "Be careful!" she shrieked as the cowboy managed to steady himself, but I knew at that moment, we weren't just racing against a storm, we were facing something much more profound, a storm brewing in the depths of our own lives. Without thinking, I dashed toward the tree, feeling the rain now spatter like stones against my face. "In here. Just move carefully." The words spilled from me like water, pooling into the ground beneath the weight of my insistent worry. What was he so afraid of, and what was this storm that raged inside him? "Just a little longer," he gritted out, but I could see the determination fading, like the last flicker of a candle before the gusts blew it out entirely. "Please," I cried out, desperation lacing my words. "You can do it. We're right here." But as I looked to the girl beside me, her excitement now replaced with fear, the realization crashed over me like the tumultuous waves of the storm. She was relying on him as much as I was, anchoring our tether to hope. Would he falter? What would we do if he didn't return? And then, just as he reached for the kite, another burst of wind howled around us ferociously. The branches twisted ominously, and suddenly, the cowboy began to fall, the yacht-coloring kite fluttering down from the sky like a ship capsizing in a storm. No. I yelled instinctively, launching forward, pushing the girl back as I reached for him. But as I ran, my foot slipped on the muddy earth, and I staggered, losing all sense of balance. Time slowed, morphing the frantic scene into a surreal moment steeped in tension. I stretched my arms out toward him, desperate to grasp at the remnants of my hope. And in that frozen heartbeat, something shifted, the air thickened, and a sharp, electrifying realization shattered through me. I wasn't just losing him to the storm, I was confronting the truth of my own heart, the reality that I had entrusted so much of my own pain to someone who might be wrestling with greater demons than I understood. A shadow passed over my soul, it tethered my heart to the question that loomed larger than the storm. What if he didn't just represent hope but also the storm? Within me, a blinding flash of light enveloped us all as the world around became a cacophony of chaos, and just as the cowboy reached my outstretched hand, we were swallowed whole by the raging storm. The moment we were engulfed by the storm, chaos erupted in my mind like the thunder rumbling in the clouds. I felt the sharp contrast of heat and cold as the rain lashed against us, soaking through our clothes and merging our fears into a torrent of shared dread. The world was a whirlwind of gray, and all I could focus on was the cowboy. His face was agonized, his grip around my hand faltering. "That we can't stay here," I shouted over the roar, the words tearing from my throat with urgency. Beside me, the girl was rooted to the spot, fear holding her captive as she watched the two of us suspended in this strange ballet of desperation. A gust lifted me slightly off balance, and I gripped the cowboy tighter. "We have to get to shelter." He looked down, meeting my gaze for a fleeting second, searching for something unspoken. In that instant, I realized our connection was far deeper than I'd imagined. His struggles mirrored my own, isolated echoes of silent battles fought in solitude. But here we were, teetering on the brink of something monumental, our fates tied together by urgent need. "On three," he breathed, his voice firm yet broken, like the branches around us ready to snap under nature's fury. 1, 2, 3, he pulled me toward him, using every ounce of strength to hoist himself from the branch that had betrayed him, inching us back down. The girl's small voice broke through the maelstrom, reminding me that it wasn't just the two of us, was counting on us too, there. I pointed at the thick underbrush at the base of the tree. "We can hide there." With a final push, he descended, landing hard on the ground beside me. The girl's eyes widened, a mix of fear and hope brightening her features as she darted toward the thicket. I followed, collapsing into the dense foliage just as another bolt of electricity fractured the sky, illuminating the path momentarily as if the heavens were blessing our escape. We huddled together there, the storm swirling above us, a cacophony of nature's wrath. I could barely catch my breath, heart racing louder than the thunder. As the rain beat down relentlessly, I could sense the cowboy's doubt creeping back in. I could almost feel the shadows that haunted Hyman's unyielding weight pressing on his shoulders. "Thank you," he finally said, his voice low and strained as he wiped the water from his brow. "I thought I lost you." I considered his words, pondering what a loss meant in this frenzied world we were navigating. What does it matter if we can't stay afloat? The question slipped out before I could cage it. What are we really fighting for? The silence between us hung heavy, punctuated only by the storm's fury. I looked at the girl, who wrapped her small arms around her legs, instinctively seeking solace. She took a deep breath, and despite the rain, her voice came out cautiously. "Sometimes, you just have to believe." Belief. What did that even mean to any of us? I wanted to tell her that I was struggling to hold on to my own faith, that in the midst of this chaos, hope often felt like a distant mirage. But seeing her innocence reminded me of the flicker of courage I'd felt earlier, the same courage that had pushed us all toward the tree, each battling something unseen. It was in this moment of introspection that a soft glow caught my eye. Against all odds, a small fire started in the distance, flickering precariously yet steadily against the storm's wrath. My heart skipped a beat, flicker of hope igniting gingerly within me. "Look!" I exclaimed, pointing toward the light that shimmered like a star amidst the chaos. "There's a chance. We can make it there." The cowboy turned to me, the lines of worry etched on his face slowly softening as the determination I'd seen earlier returned. "We can't waste it." Our eyes met, and for a moment, the storm around us faded. Our shared will pulsed with newfound strength. "Hold on to each other tightly," I instructed the girl, who nodded without hesitation, mirroring our resolve. "We go on three again," he said, this time with a steadiness that resonated deep within us both. 1, 2, 3, as we burst from the brush, the storm battered us with fierce winds and stinging rain, but our spirits soared. The light flickered nearer, guiding our steps. The ground slipped beneath our feet, mud threatening to swallow us whole, but we kept pushing forward. But just as I thought we'd reach sanctuary, an excruciating crack of thunder exploded overhead. I stumbled as the earth shook and lost my grip on the girl's hand for an agonizing heartbeat. Everything slowed, the brilliant flashes illuminating our scene. I turned, panic clawing at my throat as I found her staring up at me, eyes wide with fear. And then, in a desperate plea, the cowboy slipped just ahead of Maya's feet, lost to the chaos. "Hold on!" I screamed, but he was falling, careening toward a gaping chasm that had formed in the ground, masked by rain. My heart sank as I lunged toward him, desperate to pull him back from the brink, but the storm was too fierce, and then, I understood. The storm was not just raging around us, it mirrored the tempests within us, the fears, the unresolved pain. In that moment of despair, I was left facing the truth that everything I thought I understood was flipping over, like the world was being tossed headlong into the roiling clouds. A scream almost escaped my lips, but suddenly, it was too late. The cowboy was gone, swallowed whole by the abyss, and with him, perhaps any shred of the hope I'd clung to. I sat alone on a crate at the train station, heartbroken and alone, unaware of the cowboy ready to be swept away by the winds of fate. The echoes of my scream faded into the damp air, leaving behind a weightless silence that enveloped me like an unwanted cloak. My heart thudded painfully, it ached in a way I recognized all too well. It was a loneliness that clawed at the corners of my mind and threatened to rend my spirit apart. That I turned back, looking at the darkness where the cowboy had fallen. A chasm of despair yawned before me now, stark and cold, mirroring the void that had opened in my chest. The rain continued its relentless assault, each drop a reminder of what had just been lost. I glanced at the girl, her small form trembling in the rain, her eyes brimming with confusion and fear. She didn't understand what had happened, and in that moment, I wished more than anything I could shield her from this world's cruelty. Hello. Her quavering voice broke the silence, pulling my thoughts away from the abyss. I looked at her, struggling to summon a smile, anything that might quell the storm brewing in her mind. She deserved comfort, even if I couldn't find it myself. Hey, we need to keep moving, I managed to say, forcing a semblance of resolve into my tone. Turning away from the chasm, I took cautious steps back toward the flickering light in the distance. The fire still burned, almost defiantly, and part of me felt drawn to eat a promise of warmth in this night of despair. As we moved, the rain lessened its fury. The wind still howled, but I found comfort in the fact that it didn't erase the dim light ahead, it still glinted like a beacon. With each step, I tried to convince myself that maybe it would lead us to safety, to something more than just existence. As I neared, I began to feel the warmth of the flames ebbing closer, wrapping around my heart like a tender embrace. The girl clutched my hand tighter, and I noticed her resilience, simple yet inspiring. "Is he coming back?" she asked, breaking the silence with a pang of innocence that pierced my heart. I hesitated, fighting the truth clawing at the back of my throat. He's far away," I said gently, my voice shaking, fearing the weight of the moment. "But he wanted us to be safe. So we have to keep going." As we reached the edge of the firelight, I blinked against the glow and took in our surroundings. There were old crates stacked haphazardly and a few broken benches. This forsaken station must have once been bustling with travelers. Now, it lay in silence, mirroring the stillness enveloping my heart. The fire flickered wildly, casting dancing shadows across the walls, and despite the desolation, I could feel a spark of hope, the essence of survival. I knelt down and began arranging the debris into a makeshift barrier against the wind, trying to shield the flame from that erratic storm. The girl mimicked me, picking up things that caught her interest, her childlike nature shining through the murk of despair. "I am going to make it pretty," she exclaimed, setting a few dried flowers she had found before the storm near the flickering light. The simple act stirred something deep within me. In the midst of loss, there was still beauty, the power to create, to find solace even after the storm. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to breathe in the aroma of the earth mingled with the smoke from the fire. I watched the girl, her small body bent over her project, and I felt a warmth unfurl in my chest, intertwining itself with the grief. But as I basked in this brief comfort, a low rumble, not of thunder but of something far more ominous, echoed in the depths of the station. My heart quickened again, pounding against my ribs as shadows shifted unnervingly in the darkness. The world felt wrong, and as if to confirm my unease, the storm's winds whipped back to life, howling like mournful spirits. "Do you hear that?" I whispered, feeling a chill crawl down my spine. The girl looked at me, her wide eyes reflecting the firelight. Before I could voice another thought, the ground trembled beneath us, and the old structure creaked ominously. My instincts screamed to run, to get her away from here, but where? Just as uncertainty wrapped itself around my thoughts, a loud crash echoed, and a section of the roof above us caved in, sending debris scattering across the ground. "Stay close," I shouted, pulling her protectively against me. The realization hit Meth storm wasn't done with us yet. It had delivered one last blow to end the chaos. A piece of parchment fluttered down from above, unblemished by the rain. It landed at my feet, and I bent down to pick it up, startled to find a message scrawled upon it. "Sacrifice is sometimes the only path to redemption," it read, cryptic and unnerving. The words hung in the air like unfinished sentences, sending shivers through my heart as I stared at the girl beside me. What did this mean for us? For the cowboy? The realization dawned, pressing heavy against my chest. Nothing could be simple anymore. Before I could dwell on the revelation, the ground shook once more. I looked up, panic flooding my senses. The roof above us was unstable, and the darkness was alive with things that felt far more threatening than just the storm. In the depths of panic, a question lingered: what sacrifices lay ahead on this treacherous path, and were we prepared to face them? "Hold on tight," I whispered to the girl, and though I felt the storm breathing closer, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I would figure it out, somehow. We had to keep moving, keep believing. Just when I thought we might slip into despair, I looked up through the chaos outside. At least, for now, we were still together. But what lay beyond the flickering flames brought on a new storm, one steeped in uncertainty that threatened to swallow us whole. The trembling intensity of the storm mirrored the turmoil within me, shaking the very foundations of my spirit. I clutched the girl's hand tightly, her small fingers struggling to find solace in my grip. The abandoned train station felt like an echo of our futurista place that had once held the promise of travel and adventure, now reduced to ruins. Just like my heart, just as the darkness began to claw its way deeper toward us, the fire flickered under a lost breath, as though echoing my internal struggle. I could have sworn the shadows that danced menacingly were taunting me, beckoning me to give in to the despair threatening to engulf my soul. But then I looked down at the girl. The purity in her fear-stricken face reminded me of why I had to fight. "Where do we go now?" she asked, her voice small, each word brimming with an innocence so stark against the chaos. The parchment slipped from my fingers, drawing my attention back to its cryptic message. "Sacrifice is sometimes the only path to redemption." My heart sank a bit lower, the weight of meaning pressing against my chest like a heavy stone. I could feel my gut twisting with apprehension. What did it mean, and more importantly, who or what would be the price? "First, we need to find a place to hide from the roof," I said, shoving the parchment into my pocket before placing my palm on her back gently, guiding her away from the encroaching shadows. The fire sputtered again, its warmth was becoming unreliable, yet it also reminded me of the life that still flickered within us. Navigating through the debris felt like wading through an uncertain fog. Each step felt heavier, as if the weight of our despair sought to anchor us in this forgotten place. As I cautiously moved deeper into the structure, I stumbled across a compartment that was less exposed: a rusted storage room filled with broken bicycles and shattered dreams. "Over here," I urged, forcing myself to smile in the dim light. As we slipped inside the cramped space, the howling wind felt like a distant memory. Sheltered from the storm's wrath, I drew a shaky breath, both of relief and dread. "Are we safe?" the girl whispered, her eyes darting around the dim space as if waiting for the darkness to manifest into something tangible. "For now," I replied, my own voice hollow, but I was lying, the insides twisted like the wind outside. The truth loomed heavy: this wasn't safety, it was merely a pause before the next storm. I tried to shake the lingering fear, wrapping my arms around her. Almost instinctively, she leaned into me, and for a moment, we created a small world within those walls, bonded by shared sorrow and fragile hope. But even as I cherished that brief semblance of normalcy, the shadows seemed to encircle us tighter. It felt as if they were listening, waiting for the moment of our weakness. "Tell me a story," the girl pleaded, breaking the tense silence, her voice an echo of resilience. "About the cowboy." How could I turn a memory of light into a tale amidst this darkness? But then again, the story was not just about loss, it was filled with laughter, courage, and dreams. "Okay," I began, forcing the smile onto my lips, weaving through my memories like a delicate thread. There once was a cowboy who rode across vast lands under the vast, blue sky, chasing sunsets and chasing shadows. The words flowed, and for a moment, both of us were momentarily suspended in a world untouched by the weight of grief. The girl's giggles filled the small space, a sweet sound that danced through the air, breaking the pallor of fear that gripped my heart. But just as our laughter began to lift us, a loud crash echoed from outside, shattering our fleeting sanctuary. The wooden walls trembled violently as if warning us that the darkness was not as far away as we thought. Suddenly, the parchment slipped from my pocket, unfurling as it hit the ground. My breath caught in my throat as I rushed to grab it, realizing it now displayed something sinister, a list of names, almost like a ledger of debts. I hadn't noticed before how each name was sharply lined through, except for one. My name stood alone, untouched. What's wrong? The girl's voice echoed uncertainty, shattering my focused my mind word, panic clawing at my chest. This wasn't a simple parchment, it felt more like a dreadful binding of fate. I stared at the names, a cold chill creeping over me. Who had written this? What debts were being called? Nothing, I lied, forcing my face into a mask of calm. But the truth was there, smoldering beneath the surface, and I could feel it creeping closer. The night was far from over, and it felt more menacing than before. Just then, as I steadied myself against the wall, the whispers of the wind transformed into something eerie, like voices tangled in a broken promise. The girl's grip around my arm tightened, her innocence now replaced by instinctual dread. Stay close, I whispered, but deep down inside me, fear had unleashed a new storm. What sacrifices had been made before us? What did the future hold for us in the shadow of this identity I had yet to understand? And just as I braced for the storm to hit again, my gaze landed back on the parchment, a chilling reminder that perhaps the price was much greater than I could bear. I sat alone on a crate at the train station, heartbroken and alone, unaware of the cowboy ready to ride in through the storm. As the thunder cracked outside, the girl curled against me, her small frame shivering not just from the chill but from a deep-seated fear that wrapped around us like a cold blanket. She had started to hum a tune I recognized as one her mother used to sing. The melody danced through the wreckage of my heart, knitting together memories of warmth and laughter, and yet, the weight of our reality was pressing down upon us. Can you tell me what happened to the cowboy? She whispered, her voice barely audible over the wind's wailing. I shifted uneasily, the shadow of the parchment loomed large in my mind, but her innocent request seemed to momentarily drown out the dread. The cowboy faced many challenges, I started, forcing conviction into my voice, but he did not fight alone. He had a little girl with him, just like you, who reminded him to be brave. We're brave together, she said, her eyes gleaming with the flickering light of hope. Yes, we are, I affirmed, wishing fervently that my words could grant her the strength we both needed. Each fleeting moment of joy felt like a fragile thread, fearfully woven into the tapestry of our existence. The howling winds outside faded momentarily as my story wrapped around us in its comforting embrace. I wove tales of adventures in a world beyond the dark shadows that threatened to swallow us whole. The final showdown against the bandits, the fearless charge to rescue a lost friend, the laughter that would follow a well-earned victory. But just as I recounted the heroic feats, a sharp noise sliced through our bubble. The heavy clang of metal echoed ominously from the adjacent compartment, puncturing the fragile piece we'd crafted. Stay quiet. I whispered urgently, grabbing her hand and motioning for her to huddle closer to me. My heart raced, pounding like a runaway train, while anxiety coursed through my veins like a powerful current. The darkness felt alive now, as if something was slithering through the shadows, inching closer with each passing heartbeat. I strained my ears, trying to differentiate the sounds: a low scraping, a sudden rustle, and then nothing. A chill gripped me, twisting into a sick knot in my stomach. That in a brittle silence, I glanced around our makeshift sanctuary, weighing our one escape route against the shadows encroaching at the edges. The girl's face went pale, her eyes wide with fear reflecting back at me. Without thinking, I squeezed her hand reassuringly, still acutely aware of how fragile our reality seemed. You trust me, right? I asked, forcing a steadiness into my voice, though my own heart quaked at the truth my question implied. Always, she replied, her courage igniting a flicker of resolve in my chest. But the storm was ramming against the rickety walls of our refuge, and reality was pressing in on us. Maybe it's time to go, I reluctantly murmured, feeling the weight of that decision settle heavily upon me. The girl's expression morphed from fear to determination, and for the briefest moment, I felt the warmth of hope blooming between us once more. Just then, another crash resounded from outside, sending splinters through my already fraying confidence. The torrent had picked up, forcing me into action. I stood up, heart racing as I scanned the room, looking for a way to maneuver safely through the debris. As I prepared to lead us toward an exit, the shuffling noise erupted again, and my breath caught in my throat. I turned, straining into the darkness, frantically searching for the source of the disturbance. Keep your head down, I instructed, feeling the need for us to be invisible, camouflaged against the looming chaos. The shadows began to coalesce into something more than mere darkness, a figure emerging from the rubble, tall and hauntingly familiar. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice barely breaking above the howl of the wind. A soft chuckle resonated through the space, eerie yet strangely comforting. "Looks like you've been busy," the figure replied, shrouded in dim light. My heart dropped as a name slipped from my lips, unbidden. "Ben." The figure stepped closer, revealing the familiar face of a ghost from my past. The storm howled louder, but my world had paused, spiraling in disbelief. Ben's eyes, once full of life and laughter, now shimmered with a cold shadow. "I see you've kept our little project alive," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "But you must know, the debts are due. And this time, they don't come with a choice." The girl flinched, fear gripping her as she clutched my side tighter. My heart raced anew, an electrified apprehension coursing through me at the realization of who truly held the power in this broken world. "Ben, what are you talking about?" I demanded, my voice thick with anxiety, knowing full well the fear he may sow. The storm raged outside while the truth crept closer, a chilling reminder that we were all tangled in a web we never fully understood, and debts from the past often carried more weight than we could bear. I looked down at the girl, steeling myself for the secrets that were unraveling before us, all the while wondering just how far I would go to protect her. The confrontation had only just begun, and the stakes now reached a level I had never anticipated. I couldn't shake the cold grip of disbelief that tightened around my chest as Ben's eyes met mine. Clarity pierced through the initial shock. Was here. Here, in the storm, in our hiding spot, ready to drag us back into the chaos I desperately tried to escape. The girl flinched beside me, pulling away slightly as if sensing the tension crackling in the air. I reached down, reassuring her with a gentle squeeze of her hand, grounding both of us in this moment, a fragile lifeline against the waves of the past crashing around us. "Don't be afraid," I whispered, though the words felt hollow in the heaviness of the room. "We can handle this together." Ben took a step closer, his shadow stretching across the scattered debris, making him appear larger than life. "Together? Oh, how quaint." He let out a mirthless laugh that echoed in the hollow space, turning the air thick with an overwhelming sense of dread. "You thrived on the delusion of togetherness. Don't you remember? It was the very thing that tore us apart." His words cut me deeper than any physical blow could. Memories surged, sudden arguments, unspoken truths, promises thrown to the wind. The gravity of our shared history settled heavy upon my shoulders. I steeled myself, unwilling to let his venomous nostalgia ensnare my spirit. "What do you want, Ben?" I managed to ask, my voice steadier than I felt. "Why are you here?" "I want what's owed," he replied, his eyes glinting with a mix of challenge and longing. "We were once part of something grand, you and I. And now? Now you've built walls around your life, guarding a treasure that isn't yours to keep." His gaze flicked to the girl beside me, and I instinctively stepped in front of her, shielding her from whatever bleak intention he harbored. "You don't have to do this," I urged, desperation rising in my voice. "We can leave the past behind us, but the past, my dear friend, always finds a way to greet us," he said, his tone both mocking and serenely menacing. "And it seems it's found you in the most fragile state. Look at you, jumping from one story to another, pretending to be her savior. But you're just as lost as you were before. That I could feel the girl shivering against my side, her small hand trembling in mine. I turned to her, searching for strength in her innocent eyes. Stay close. Just remember our story, I murmured, hoping to bolster us both against the onslaught of Ben's rhetoric. Stories don't save people, you fool, Ben shot back, cutting through my reassurance. The world is about power, and right now, I'm the only one holding the cards. That I clenched my fists, staving off the anger boiling inside me. You really think you can intimidate me, Ben? We've survived worse than you. His smirk widened, but there was a flicker of something uncertainty. Regret? I couldn't afford to linger on it. Then, as if sensing my doubt, his demeanor shifted, and he stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're right, we were survivors, but perhaps you've forgotten there's always a price. I know about your little friend here, it's not just your life at stake anymore. The girl stiffened beside me, and my heart dropped. What do you mean? I demanded, panic lacing my words. Ben leaned closer, his breath cold against my skin. Let's not forget the debts to be settled. You owe me, and now she does too. Don't you see? What happens to her is entirely in your hands and your choice. That I felt my stomach twist as dread clawed at my insides. How could he intertwine her fate with our shared past's misdeeds? My thoughts crashed against one another like waves, spinning in chaotic uncertainty. Leave her out of this. I shouted, desperation igniting my resolve. She's innocent. This is between you and me. But innocence is an illusion, he laughed darkly. She already carries the shadows of your past. And if you're not careful, it might consume her whole. The realization thudded heavily in my chest. Fear for her safety ignited a fierce adrenaline, mixing with an urgent need to untangle the web Ben had spun. I was caught in a violent crossroad, between protecting this little girl who epitomized hope and facing the demon from my past who could unravel everything I had fought for. Before I could collect my thoughts, a deafening crack of thunder rattled the station, drowning out our words. The lights flickered, and I felt the very ground beneath us shake. In that instant, a stray beam from the wreckage above broke loose, crashing down dangerously close to where the girl stood. Look out! I shouted, shoving her aside just as the wood splintered, barely avoiding a catastrophe. Panic surged through my veins as I spun around, shielding her from the aftermath of chaos, adrenaline firing through me as instinct kicked in. In that moment, I realized Ben had taken a step back, momentarily stunned by the unforeseen calamity that had erupted around us. I had to seize the chance, grab her. I barked, pushing the girl toward the far side of the crate. We need to run, wait. Ben called out as my resolve steeled against his fading presence. That we bolted through the rain-soaked, jagged darkness, adrenaline racing alongside my heartbeat. I glanced back just once to catch a glimpse of Ben, his face twisted in disbelief mixed with begrudging respect. There was power in our struggle, something rising from the ashes of my past. As we dashed into the storm, I could feel the heavy weight of unspoken truths settling between us. For every hurried step we took, I knew we were merely escaping one danger, yet trudging toward another realm of uncertainty. The storm raged on, but in our hearts, hope flickered dimly, urging us to move forward, and as I stole another glance back, a shocking realization struck me harder than the relentless downpour. Ben wouldn't be the only specter haunting us from the shadows of the past. The rain poured down harder as we sprinted away from the crumbling station, my heart pounding in my chest. Each drop felt like a judgment call, the universe punishing me for every fragment of my broken past. I glanced at the girl, her small body splashing through puddles, innocence juxtaposed against the chaos we were fleeing. I was terrified of dragging her into my storm, but right then, she was my profound anchor, the flickering beacon of hope that urged me forward. Stay close. I yelled over the deafening roar of the rain. Every step weighted by fear. Behind us, I could sense the shadows gathering, unyielding and sinister, circling back toward the remnants of my life where Ben's voice echoed still, hauntingly chill in the tempest. We ran until my lungs burned and my legs threatened to buckle beneath me. All the while, the paper clutched tightly in my pocket felt like a leaden reminder of my sins, the name scrawled upon it, a chain binding me to a past I desperately wished to escape. And yet, inexplicably, I felt the girl's hand tighten around my own, her small fingers an iron grip on my faltering resolve. The storm blurred the world into a painting of despair, but that small grip ignited something inside me, a courage I thought long extinguished. With each glance up at the girl's determined face, I realized I wasn't just dragging her through this dark night, we were pulling each other toward the light. There, over the hill. I pointed through the mist, where the outline of a cabin emerged, illuminated by flickers of warmth spilling through uneven windows. Maybe it was the shelter I sought, a place to huddle against the cold embrace of despair. The girl's eyes sparkled as she nodded, and together, we approached the wooden doors, once an entry to serenity, now possibly a refuge from the storm raging behind us. I slammed open the door, rain spilling inside as we tumbled into the dimly lit interior, escaping the chaos that followed. Gasping for breath, I closed my eyes, ground myself in this newfound calm that oozed from the flickering fire in the hearth. I took a moment, letting the warmth seep into my bones, breaking the chill of our frantic flight. But as I turned to the girl, a pang of concern struck me. She stood silhouetted in the firelight, her face pale and drawn. "Are we safe?" she asked, the tremor in her voice cracking through the tension that still hung in the air. "Safe enough for now," I responded, though the words held as much truth as light in a storm. I wanted to believe it, I wanted to be her fortress against the chaos. But the whispers returned, the weight of Ben's presence loomed like an unshakable shadow, his words replaying over and over in my mind. "Your innocence is still at stake," he had said, and dread rooted itself deeper in my heart. Was it true? Would every specter of my past find a way back to consume what little light we had left? I knelt in front of the girl, keeping my voice light, though a tempest brewed inside me. "Let's make this place a home for a little while," I encouraged, grabbing a few sticks to feed the fire. She joined me eagerly, and for a moment, our laughter echoed through the cabin, fanning the flames of hope. But just as I thought we'd stolen back a piece of our peace, I felt a shiver crept up my spine, prickling my skin like the sharp bite of fleeting memories. There was a presence in the room, you could feel it crawling beneath your skin. I knew I had to confront it, to face what lingered in the shadows, harness the mission that loomed heavy over my existence. "Why did you come here?" I spoke to the darkness now, my heart racing but steely with resolve. "Are you here to collect?" The shadows coalesced softly, materializing into the faint outline of familiar, piercing eyes. "You've not escaped yet," Ben's voice echoed through the dim chamber, twisting against the walls like a dark cloud. "You still carry those debts, and you know what that means. Leave her out of this." I shouted, adrenaline surging. "You said it was between us. You've no claim on her, not when she's innocent." But his laughter rolled through the air like thunder, mocking and sinister. "Innocence is a fragile thing, one you can shatter if you're not careful. But there's more to be revealed, a kindness, a sacrifice. You should know by now, your choices dictate the chains that bind us." My pulse quickened, chaos erupting again in my chest. The truth twisted sharply, clawing from somewhere deep within me. What burden did I need to bear to protect this girl? What sacrifice lay ahead? "Show yourself, then," I yelled, my voice cutting through the tension. "Let's break this cycle." I refused to submit to the past. But Ben's figure remained wreathed in darkness, taunting me even as the rain pounded outside. "I promise you, the storm will come for her if you don't decide." Suddenly, realization ripped through me like lightning, the embodiment of my own fears reflected in his haunting gaze. The debts he spoke of had nothing to do with money or tangible things, it was the weight of my choices, the pieces of me I had sacrificed to stay afloat in life. Racing against time, I pushed the girl behind me, locking eyes with the specter of my past. I was done running. Facing the tempest head-on was my only chance to save us both. "If there's a sacrifice to make, it'll be mine alone to bear." As I spoke those words, a warm glow erupted around the cabin, flames flickering as if infused with newfound hope. The shadows shuddered, reacting to the courage building in me, the warmth igniting a fire that lingered deep within. "Very well," Ben hissed, the shadows swirling as if unsure how to respond to my newfound strength. "But expect the storm to rise once more." And just like that, he evaporated into the ether, leaving nothing but echoes of his mocking laughter behind. I turned to the girl, whose eyes never left mine. "You're safe. Well, get through this together," I promised, the raw power of my revelation now vibrating in my chest. But we had lost the fight. One battle was over, yet this was far from done. The storm outside still raged, but now, we would confront the unknown with courage and resilience. I knew the truth would rise before us, dark and heavy. In that moment, standing tall against the weight of my fears, I understood the price that lay ahead, a sacrifice that might demand everything. But it didn't matter. I had felt the fire ignite inside me amid the shadows of despair, ready to propel us forward into the light, and as we took a step back from the darkness, I realized sometimes facing your fears is the ultimate path to freedom. Together, we would carve a way through this storm and emerge, not unscathed but victorious. With our hands tightly clasped, I whispered the affirmation that sealed our resolve, locking eyes with the girl who had become my beacon of hope through it all. "We will rise." And together, we stepped into the storm.